Thank you, Stacy. And hello, thanks everyone for joining us today for our Lessons Learned from Eide Bailly's Resourcefulness Award. My name is Deb Nelson and I lead the nonprofit industry here at Eide Bailly. Our plan for today will be to share a little bit about the firm and what the Eide Bailly Resourcefulness Award is. We will highlight our 2022 winner and then hear from two inspiring speakers today. We have Dr. Robert Ashcraft, who was one of our 2022 judges and is the Executive Director of the Lodestar Center for Philanthropy and Nonprofit Innovation at Arizona State University. And then we're also joined by Cody Cox and Loda Zoth, who are with Camp Able, which happens to be our 2022 winner. And as Stacy mentioned, we do have the Q&A function as part of this webinar. And when we get to our keynote and Camp Able, we do encourage you to be asking questions. I think this is always more fun when it can be interactive and we can address things that are top of mind for you. And for those who are not familiar with Eide Bailly, we are a top 25 CPA firm with more than 40 offices across the US and India. We've been serving nonprofit organizations for more than 100 years and have grown our practice to be more than 300 professionals just within the nonprofit sector. Our team can guide you through understanding financial information, how to best communicate with your board, and how changes in activities and structure impact your tax-exempt status. And we also can offer valuable perspectives beyond those of the traditional accounting services. We have an amazing technology consulting team here at Eide Bailly that can assist with your digital transformation. That can include software implementations, cybersecurity services, robotic process automation, or even data analytics. We do offer a monthly free educational webinar specific to our nonprofit clients, and we are dedicating our spring series to those specific technology topics. So we hope you can join us to learn more about those. And 2022 marks a decade of the Eide Bailly Resourcefulness Award. This award was created to support the financial health of the nonprofit sector and to recognize creative revenue generating initiatives. And the award originally was opened to any 501c3 organization within a handful of states in our Eide Bailly footprint. But in the 10th year, we made the move to move this to a nationwide award. And we proudly share that we have awarded $580,000 back into the community since 2013. That involves reviewing over 1,300 submissions from more than 900 organizations. We weren't sure what to expect when we moved this to a nationwide award, but we were pleased to receive applications from more than 40 states. So thank you to everyone for helping spread the word about the award. And of course, this award is not possible without the help of our judges. They have volunteered their time to read and score those submissions based upon the criteria of the award. Those criteria included creativity, implementation, financial impact, sustainability, and overall impression. So thank you, judges, for your time and energy dedicated to this process. We have Gary Cunningham, who is President and CEO at Prosperity Now, Mary Dawson, Program Manager of Global Development and Alzheimer's at GHR Foundation, and then Dr. Robert Ashcraft, Executive Director of the Lodestar Center for Philanthropy and Nonprofit Innovation at ASU. We continue to be impressed by the creativity that comes through in the applications that we received. Some of the top trends included educational packages for sale. So here we saw everything from STEM to art, where organizations were taking their educational resources, packaging them in a variety of different ways, and then finding ways to sell them out in the community, whether that was to other nonprofit organizations, schools, or even families. Community events were also very well represented. We saw radiothons, Holly Jolly Light event, a winter fest, and numerous virtual walks. And we also continue to see development of social enterprise models. 2022 really focused a lot on those that were providing specific job training skills. But the standout trend for 2022 was community engagement. Many organizations leaned on their community for ideas, which proved to provide amazing results. This included campaigns where the community did the fundraising on behalf of the organization. We also saw initiatives where individuals came together to repair homes and community spaces. And then we also saw programs that allowed individuals to see their dollars at work by being right on site at the organization. But there was one standout community engagement initiative that rose to the top with our judges in 2022, and that was Camp Able of Buffalo Gap, Texas. They submitted for their initiative of the Buffalo Run Adventure Challenge.
Camp Able was started by Renee Hicks as an organization to use therapeutic riding and life skills training to help special needs individuals. Camp Able is also an animal welfare organization where we take in horses that have been rescued from difficult circumstances. We marry the two concepts together, giving horses a second job, and these horses can communicate very well with these special needs individuals. We've always had the dream to have some type of covered riding facility, but that dream really became a necessary goal about 3 or 4 years ago, because we were growing and our waiting list for special needs clients that want to come and have our services is getting longer and longer. So we really reached the point that we had to do something.
One day I was sitting around Steve Schooley's saddle shop here in Buffalo Gap. He was working and I was just loitering, killing time. I was sitting there on Facebook looking through old cars, and I found some old Lincoln or something for $500. He said, well, I know some guys that do a $500 car race. They have these old junk cars and they do a race cross country. Well, we told somebody, they told somebody, it started picking up steam and getting bigger every day. And then we thought, well, this has got a shot of raising some money. I met Renee Hicks, who was the founder of Camp Able, 10 or 15 years ago, I guess, through church, and knew kind of what they did. I mean, they are absolutely changing lives, and if we could be a small part of that, if we could contribute a couple $1,000s to that, that was the original goal.
Being a relatively small organization, we don't always have time to do a lot of fundraising. So to have these two community members raise their hand and say, we'd like to do this, that was just great. We were so excited to have that.
The first year we had 17 teams sign up. We had everything from an old ambulance to a 1978 Country Squire station wagon to our 1993 coroner's Dodge van. You came out of a coroner's office, so it was more of a parade than a race. It was quite a collection of vehicles.
The whole town population of Buffalo Gap is only 463, and we think we had about 500 people at the starting line. They were handing me checks and wads of cash, and I was trying to keep up with which team they were going to, and stuffing this all in this cloth tool belt that I had, thankfully, because it was just, I would not have had enough pocket space to put everything.
When we pulled out, we had 168 followers on our Facebook group. Approximately 4 hours later, we had nearly 400. And then by daylight the next morning, and we were pulling into the Grand Canyon, and I looked, and we were sitting at about 1,100 followers. And then by the time we got back to Abilene, another 12 hours, we were, I think, at like 2,600 or something. So it was absolutely amazing. It just blew up overnight. And with the followers came money. The Venmo on my phone was just dinging nonstop. This is insane. We far surpassed our $10,000, that we originally, that was our lofty goal. By that morning, I think we were sitting at like $40-something thousand, which, just absolutely blew our minds.
I've now had the opportunity to do this for 2 of the runs, and the first year, $100,000, the second year, over $200,000. It has advanced probably by several years the amount of work that we could do, whether that be fencing, cover for horses, renovation of existing facilities, and probably most importantly, preparation for our main therapeutic riding arena, which will be hopefully constructed in the very near future. So suffice it to say, the Buffalo Run has been an amazing event for Camp Able.
So I would now like to introduce our keynote for today, Dr. Robert Ashcraft. The ASU Lodestar Center is a global leader in advancing effective philanthropic and nonprofit practice as a distinctive community development strategy. Through research, education, and technical assistance, the center advances nonprofit leaders and philanthropists to solve problems and accelerate social impact. As the center's founding executive director, Dr. Ashcraft has a global reputation for his work to advance the understanding of and effective practice for leaders of nonprofit organizations. So with that, Robert, I will turn things over to you.
Well, let's just sort of cogitate on this for a moment. It's quite a lesson in resourcefulness. We're living on this world of technology. And by the way, none of the attendees want to hear this, but I mean, this only like worked perfectly in the last 15 minutes until we all just logged in, and isn't that the way it goes? So let me catch up first. Deeply inspired by all of you. It was a joy to be a judge. And I think I speak for the other judges and the leadership of Eide Bailey that frankly, it filled our cup. You're so resourceful. You're meeting the moment of our times across these amazing nonprofit organizations. So it was just a real privilege. And I might also say that, people doing this change-making work, there were so many worthy proposals across 900, right, Deb and team? So thank you, Eide Bailey. The ASU Lodestar Center, I'll go quickly. We do exist to educate, empower, connect. We're a capacity building engine. I'm going to skip over all of that commercial in the interest of time and introduce you to Sparky the Sun Devil. If you know ASU, Sparky is our mascot. And I mention this because
we don't see your slide advance.
You what?
I don't think your slide advanced.
Oh, God, Deb, there we go. Hey, we'll just,
there we go.
Y'all see Sparky, Deb?
Yes, we
jump in anytime. God damn it. So I want to take you back to the world you lived in and we lived in and I lived in. And you all remember March of 2020 when in fact COVID-19, as it was called, was really identified as a pandemic. And many would say, well, the world sort of changed ever since then relative to every industry and particularly the nonprofit sector. So in the work we do and in the inspiration I had from all of your submissions, assuming many of you submitted that are attendees, some of you probably are joining because you're Eide Bailey clients or evangelists. What we did is look at what was the silver lining. All the negativity was certainly there. The disruption was there, but what is it about innovation and adaptation and optimism that might lead us to understanding effectiveness or resourcefulness? So it's lunchtime somewhere in America, and I take you no further than one silver lining if you track data was, pizza places like Papa John's had record profits in March 2020 and through that year. Grubhub was up 12%. And so as you track a silver lining in the world of commerce, there actually was amazing adaptation that happened. And then I love the story of this Maryland-based family-owned farm and creamery in Maryland where they ramped up big time a home delivery service, right? So rather than, yes, I'm sure there was hand-wringing and woe is me and this is terrible because people couldn't come and purchase as they once did, the products that the farm had. So what happened? Milk delivery business just absolutely boomed and even went back to the old glass milk bottles in many cases. It was ramping up big time to meet the moment and also the opportunity of commerce. So to these couple of quick commerce examples, you could add hundreds, thousands of stories of adaptation. What about the role of technology? You've seen the underbelly of technology in the last 10, 15 minutes, but the upside is you can have a reach that's beyond imagination. And we saw this in education and so many other industries. Zoom had record profits, the company, education software. And the silver lining for nonprofits that we talked to is they found boards were more engaged and staff more connected than ever in really different ways through remote and through technology. Some boards were achieving quorums when they had a hard time in person during quote unquote regular times. A new appreciation for public education, in particular education, and why? Because parents realized having the demands associated with having their school-age children at home. Wow, I like our teachers. And of course, the adaptation, not only of public, but all forms of education were just huge. Another issue that we tracked was the value of parks and public lands and open space. Where did people go during this time when they were hunkered down and just couldn't take, being sort of quote unquote in prison of their home? They would head to open spaces, and a whole new proposition around the value of parks and public lands for sure. Another was the issue of the aesthetic needs for arts and culture. Yay to all the arts and culture folks on this webinar. People almost getting in touch, and I'm generalizing, but getting in touch with what they're passionate about, what they care about, some re-engineering and taking stock of their entire sort of life because it was so disrupted, and turning to music and arts as a huge outlet. Evidenced, and I won't go into the whole backstory if we had time, but going to the streets, going to the balconies, doing some amazing performances that brought aesthetic quality. And then for many of you through technology, the amazing choral and other performing arts, because people couldn't come to the stage, you couldn't come to the arena or the stage anymore, right? Everything was shut down, and yet this yearning for arts was just huge. So it's what we might refer to as the commons. These were three outlets around the role of education, arts, culture, open space that was huge. And so for us, when we think about resourcefulness, we do have this word innovation in our title and of our center. We learned that innovation is powered often through intrapreneurship more than entrepreneurship, which is to say, how do you figure out within the assets of your own organization what it is you need to do to adapt and meet the moment and the mission? And certainly Camp Able and other folks that applied for this award, it was very evident the innovation and adaptation that was taking place. So I take you back to 3500 BC, quick example, the invention of the wheel. I don't know why 3500 BC was the marker, but there it is. But check this out, it wasn't until the 1970s, that's a long time, where somebody got the bright idea, well, why don't we take this thing called luggage and like put wheels on? Can you believe this in the 1970s? That was an innovation, and it was existing view of the world. All of the roundness of the wheel existed for hundreds, thousands of years, and yet it took so much time. What I saw, and I think I speak for the judges, saw is a lot of innovation and adaptation and thinking about what if in our organizations could be possible. And I'm just going to leave you with a few nonprofit examples that were deeply inspiring. Sweet Farm is the first nonprofit sanctuary in the world that addressed the global climate impacts of factory farming. And its Sweet Farm is in upstate New York. Animals, plants, bringing farm animals for a life in their elder years that would be appropriate to their wellness and so on. And there's a whole great story. Well, this is a place you go. You go there and you buy farm to table, you go there and spend time. And so the economic engine for this nonprofit was based on a very place-based specific set of programs. What do you do when no one can come anymore? And here was their adaptation that I thought was just outstanding. They created Goat to Meeting. And maybe some of you experienced this. So organizations would have retreats and team building activities and other things. Everything was done by Zoom. And people paid money to the organization, which fueled their economic resourcefulness, right? They could pay bills and staff and so on. And they would bring in these goats into your Zoom meeting. And you can get online and Google it. There's some just hysterical stories where people were absolutely cracking up about just the behavior of, in this case, goats. There were over 8,000 virtual events over 2 years, 100 plus farm animal rescues. They reached over, so far, 350,000 people on every continent from one nonprofit that was place-based in New York. I mean, isn't that cool? I think it's just hugely inspirational. So in my own world, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, Greater Phoenix. Hooray to any of you that won the Super Bowl, and sorry for those that didn't, but the 100 thousands of people just departed that in the Phoenix Open. I loved what the Children's Museum of Phoenix right downtown near where our center is. What do you do if you're a museum? You're place-based, right? You're bricks and mortar. People come to you and they buy a ticket, they go to the gift shop, they buy food and beverage if you have that. What do you do when all of that is shut down? And what Children's Museum, they just said, look, we're going to innovate. And they offered a summer camp in a box, and families could purchase the box, or Philanthropy could sponsor this, sent directly to the home of families with children. And they weren't going to have this thing called the pandemic get them. I love what the Phoenix Zoo, any of you, and I'm just giving you a couple hyper local examples. What do you do? Place-based? You got to kind of go to the zoo. That's where the animals are. That's where the education is. You pay a fee. You buy tchotchkes from the souvenir shop, you buy food and all. What do you do when all of that is shut down? And what the Phoenix Zoo did is they opened up their property and promoted Cruise the Zoo. And for a certain dollar amount, you could pack as many people as possible into a vehicle, and they opened up the gates and figured out a throughway all the way around and through with vehicles. Is that resourceful? Indeed, indeed it is. Lots of examples. So here's a car driving through the zoo. So I want to just leave you with some thoughts of lessons learned around not only the work of Eide Bailey with these amazing nonprofits in this award, but the role of leadership. And what we witnessed were remarkable nonprofit leaders, board leaders, as well as staff that said, we can't be defined by the disruption. We have to realize the results we seek and organize and adapt and innovate. And so I'm always reminded of the role of the leader, Ken Chenault, who actually was quoting Napoleon. Chenault was an iconic corporate leader of American Express. What does a leader do? Define reality and give hope. And I think in all these cases, there was a lot of dealing with reality. It is what it is, but also providing hope. And another comment, many organizations collaborated like never before, a business, nonprofit collaboration, nonprofit to nonprofit with government, a huge amount of collaboration, people putting what they had on the table. And I don't mean just money, I'm talking about assets and many, many, many examples we could get into if there were time. Nonprofits that made it were hyper communicative. Always communicate. They didn't hunker down and dodge the need to be upfront to their donors, to their volunteers, inside, outside the organization, hyper communication. I'm going quickly in the interest of time, but the key of this was always advance and don't retreat. Don't let the circumstances sort of define the limitations we all could have. Advance accordingly. And we're going to hear in a minute from a wonderful organization that I just love the advancing that you all were doing out of Texas. Led by a lot of great questions. Love Margaret Wheatley. We move in the direction of the questions we ask. And what might some of those be? How do we foster innovation and solutions from the inside? And that's really entrepreneurship. And I gave you some examples of this, adapted from Jim Collins' work. And here's one I might leave you with. Gloria Fell, what does the world need from us now? And I think Camp Able and others, they may not have asked this question in that way, but in a way they did, with remarkable scale of what they decided to do. And so I'll just leave you with some of you on here might go, well, that's easy. You looked at some exemplary nonprofits and organizations that organize in such a way to be resourceful. But I'm always reminded of Francis Hesselbein borrowing from Arthur Ashe's. Then you know what? Just start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can, and try to put the butts outside the door, because there's always a reason. Not enough money, not enough volunteers, but this, but that. And the resourceful nonprofits that we've witnessed in our center and that I saw through the applications and nominations for this award, there were no buts. There was only can-do attitudes, in my view. So Deb, I'm going to turn back to you and thank all of you. And I'm glad we got through the technology snafu.
Yes, thank you, Robert. And for those who have questions that you'd like to ask of Robert, please go ahead and use the Q&A to put those in there, and we will make sure to ask those. I know one that comes to mind for me, Robert, is I think when we hear about collaboration, it takes a lot of different parties coming together for a common goal to make that happen. What are some of the most common challenges that you have seen where, we need to get over those hurdles in order to have effective collaboration?
Yeah, it's a great question. The hardest challenge is leaving egos at the door. And tangential to that is it's not about our logo and our mission, because and it's a conundrum, Deb, in our center, because we work a lot with individual nonprofits, and what we teach in capacity building, absolutely, your assets, what's your mission, everything sort of flows from who you are, your brand, and all of that. Well, in collaboration, how do we get to a sort of a grander possibility of a result? And so when I'm not being sort of pejorative, saying, well, leaving the ego at the door is important, because if we keep in mind the larger public good we're privileged to serve in the sector, then coming together can make a lot of sense. Think of intractable problems like homeless and hunger, the wicked problem space of human services. Having 1,000 points of light are great, but that's insufficient for the results we seek. It's only through collaboration. And we're seeing efforts that way in the collective impact work and so on. So, but it's hard. It's hard. I'll mention as well, there was a National Collaboration Prize, the Lodestar Foundation. We're the Lodestar Center, Lodestar Foundation funded a few years ago. And there's quite a remarkable database of collaboration models that show a lot of different ways. Some are sharing backroom operations, some are out and out mergers, some show all kinds of ways in which sometimes we just share a program collaboration, not an organization program. All that's available, and I can send you a link to that that database where people can just look around, and it's also drilled down by geography. You can look in your own state, where are some examples of collaboration and nonprofits occurring, if that's helpful.
Great, thank you. And I'll continue to watch that Q&A if there's other questions that you all would like to put in. But in the meantime, we will move on and hear from Cody Cox and Loda with Camp Able. So Camp Able was our 2022 Resourcefulness Award winner. And as I mentioned, their revenue generating initiative was the Buffalo Run Adventure Challenge. So since we did not get to see the clip of the video, Cody, maybe you can go into a little bit more detail on what the Buffalo Run was.
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Can.
Good. First, I can't thank you guys enough for putting together this program. And beyond financial gain is just the notoriety is not the right word, but just publicly putting nonprofits like us out there. Publicity does just as much for us as the financial gain, and we can't thank you guys enough for putting this program together. Camp Able is the video explained a lot of this, but Camp Able is a therapeutic riding center and equine rescue based in Buffalo Gap, Texas. We're right south of Abilene. We're kind of a geographical oddity, 2 hours from everywhere. We're 2 hours from Fort Worth, 2 hours from Lubbock, 2 hours from Midland, 2 hours from San Antonio. So we're just kind of right in the middle of everything. But we use primarily rescue horses for our therapeutic riding programs. And the goal is to build these kids up, kids and young adults, to build these kiddos up and help them to develop independence and whatever that means to that individual. If it's learning how to tie their shoes for the first time, to saying their first words, to going out and getting a job and getting married and having a family, just whatever independence that child can gain from our services is our goal. And you mentioned being flexible. You mentioned being able to adapt. We see that every day. The same program doesn't work for every kid. The same program doesn't work for every horse. The same program doesn't work for one kid the first day as it did the second day. So, it's all about being able to adapt on the fly. The Buffalo Run kind of came out of nowhere and literally came from a bunch of morons sitting around going to do something goofy anyway. We were going to buy $500 cars and race them cross country just for the fun of it. Because that's what we do. My wife tells me all the time, I'm quick to throw good money after bad. I'll spend $500 to win a $50 plastic trophy all day long. So but you know, it kind of started that way. And the more we talked about this, the more we shared the idea with friends. Everybody said, well, I want to do that. Well, I want to do that. So all of a sudden we've got a group text going around with 20 people, and everybody's posting until 3 o'clock in the morning these silly cars for sale on Facebook Marketplace. Well, the more we got to talking about it, we thought, man, if we could tie this to some kind of fundraiser, you know, this might be something we could raise some money on. You know, the choice of a beneficiary was easy. Camp Able is they were local for us, do tremendous work. I encourage you, you know, once this video's up, we go in there and watch and do some research on Camp Able. We can't, and at this time I wasn't involved with Camp Able. I met Renee, the founder, through church, and kind of knew what they did and kind of had the broad strokes. But throughout this process, and I think that's important in developing a fundraiser, throughout this process, we really dove in and we got to know, you know, everything we could about it, what it stood for, who it supported, who the personalities were involved. And you mentioned, Robert, you mentioned ego. Ego cannot play a part in these things. You know, Camp Able is growing every day, but has the right people in place for the right job at that time. And Lotus says it best. We've all got to have a founder's mentality. Everybody that we come into contact with and everybody involved in this, and which unexpectedly, everybody involved in this fundraiser is thoroughly invested, got a founder's mentality and to grow this organization. But also Loda puts it really well. Our focus is narrow, but very, very deep. You know, we have a goal, we know where we're going, but we want to make it as deep as possible. We want to catch these kiddos when they're very, very young and stick with them throughout their lives. So, you know, Camp Able had a very focused mission. Financial responsibility was big. You know, my wife and I have been involved in fundraisers in our area for many, many years. And for a lot of them, if you really sit and think about it, I didn't know what the money was doing. You know, I didn't know. You know, we donate thousands of dollars, or we watch these fundraisers gather hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we never knew what the money did. You know, and at Camp Able, you can see things being built. You can see the presence in the community. You can see the change in these kids, and that's something that really, really attracted us to Camp Able. As far as the Buffalo Run itself, like I said, you know, we got a wild bunch of people to go out and buy $500 cars. You know, there's several of these $500 car races around the country, but in our first year, we went from Buffalo Gap to the Grand Canyon, the south rim of the Grand Canyon, about 1,200 mile round trip, Buffalo Gap to the Grand Canyon and back. So the first year, like I said, we thought, yeah, we can raise $8,000 or $10,000. That'd be phenomenal. You know, it'd just be a little drop in the bucket, but it would be, you know, be a good time spending our a good use to our effort. So little did we know, our first run, we had 17 teams sign up. So we had 17 $500 cars leave Buffalo Gap, thinking we would just all kind of depart and, you know, post here and there on Facebook. Well, at the starting line, as Loda mentions in the video, Buffalo Gap's a town of about 460 people, and we had 500 to 600 people out at the starting line. It was absolutely ridiculous. People were cheering and hooping and hollering, and money was coming out of the woodwork. You know, by that time we'd promoted the event, promoted what the cause behind it was. And Loda says, you know, people were literally walking up, handing their checks and handing their $100 bills, and everybody at Camp Able was the same way. But it still hadn't really sunk in. You know, we left Buffalo Gap on a Thursday afternoon. We had 168 Facebook followers. By the time we reached the New Mexico state line 4 hours later, we had about 250 followers. So I was like, man, people are actually watching this. Well, the next morning at daylight, when we got to the Grand Canyon, our 160 followers had gotten to about 1,100 followers. I talked to Loda that morning, and she said, well, I got news for you. We're a little over $10,000. And I said, oh, that's great. She said, no, we're sitting at like $54,000. And I was like, there is no way. I mean, there is no way. Why is this happening? Well, the more we talked about it, the more we we had a group of people that were kind of I don't know if trying to think of how to put this, had really thick skin, because the more people made fun of us and the more people interacted, you know, the more involved these teams got. We left the Grand Canyon at $54,000. By the time we finished our finish line street dance the next night, which had probably, I don't know, 1,500 people in attendance, our followers on Facebook. We'd grown to about 2,800 followers. And when the smoke cleared, we were sitting at $107,000 raised, which there wasn't a dry eye in the place. I mean, it was absolutely insane. Now, my biggest point of pride in this whole ordeal is to make that $107,000, we spent $1,200. That was it. You know, we bought some banners, we bought some, we paid $60 for a website or something, and that was it. Well, that lit the fire. You know, the next year, you know, I never in a million years thought we would duplicate that success. But the small committee we put together to kind of plan the next year, which I've always heard good ideas go to committees to die. Luckily, we had a very involved committee. They all ran the run before. They all were very, very invested in Camp Able, but every one of them kept saying, every time somebody would throw out an idea, well, we could do this, we could have a band come in, we could have this. They all said, no, it spends too much money. It spends too much money. You know, the bottom line got down to how cheaply can we throw this event? How entertaining can we make it? And what's the biggest, you know, the biggest return we can get for our money, and what's the most money we can put towards Camp Able? I will say right now, including the Eide Bailey, the tremendous Eide Bailey grant, we're sitting at right at $350,000, I think, in 2 years on this fundraising event, and we've spent 3.8% of that on throwing this event. I can't thank the people involved in the committee enough for that commitment, you know, and we've learned, you know, we've been involved in big galas, and those things have their place. You know, I really do think that you know, getting people out and throwing that that big party has its place. But like I said, we've seen parties, you know, we've seen galas, I keep calling them parties, we've seen them raise, you know, $350,000 and then write a check for $60,000 to the end user. And I just can't imagine that. You know, we're very, very big on low overhead, and that attracted a lot of people to us. I had a sponsor that I've worked for years and years and years, and he finally said this last year. He said, every day I get people calling wanting us to donate money. It's a big car dealership, Dodge dealership here in Abilene. He said, every day people call and ask me to donate money. He said, I don't know what makes you think this is so different than anything else, why I should give you money. And I said, here's why. I said, because if you sponsor us for $2,000, all but $76 is going to the cause. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, literally. I said, $76 will go to, you know, whatever, throw in this little deal. You know, over $1,900, $1,923 is going to the cause. That's boots on the ground work. And he said, are you kidding me? I said, no. You know, and he didn't believe me at first. The week before the race, he kind of did some legwork. He called and said, man, we're in. He said, where do we sign up? Well, then that guy ended up coming to our street dance, finish line street dance deal, and ended up donating another $1,500 out of his pocket once he saw the spirit behind it. And that's it. You know, it's the spirit behind it. And, you know, I've sat and thought for forever, you know, how is this thing such a big success? And all I can tell you is, you know, for starting something from scratch like this is you've got to be all in. You got to be 100% in it. And if you're not in it for the right reasons, if you're in it because of ego, if you're in it because you want notoriety or to end up on the news, 90% of the time I've watched it fail or be very, very short-lived. You know, we've got people that are involved, everything from, you know, ditch diggers to lawyers and to accountants and to doctors. And, you know, it's absolutely amazing to watch the family that this thing has brought together. And it's inclusive of everybody. Like I said, it's, you know, our idea is to make it where everybody can participate, make it cheap enough to get into. But then, you know, the goal is not to get to the Grand Canyon and back first. It's to see which teams can raise the most money. This last year, our top 10 teams raised over, well, I say we had 11 teams raise over $15,000 per team towards Camp Able, which I don't even know how that works. I mean, it's amazing that people are so bought into the cause. So it's been a wild ride.
And Cody, you talked about how in the beginning you had 160 some followers and that continued to grow. What was it that they were watching? Were you doing challenges that you were posting, or what grew that?
I'll tell you, yeah, those started out as just more entertainment than anything, but absolutely developed a following like you wouldn't believe. So Billy the Kid, famed Billy the Kid, is buried in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. So along the way, you didn't just drive to the Grand Canyon and back. You had to take a picture at Billy the Kid's grave in Fort Sumner. You had to ride a stick horse and gallop New Mexico. You had to have a full funeral and burial for roadkill. Now that one has become an absolute fan favorite. So, and last year we had people making headstones and taking candles and singing hymns. And last year we had one challenge where you had to do a TikTok dance. And we've got teams of 70-year-old men, 4 70-year-old men out there doing the jiggle jiggle TikTok dance. And let me tell you, it's just flat entertaining. It has become something to watch. All of this is posted on Facebook, and I'm a technological imbecile. I don't really, I don't know how to build all the TikTok videos and all that stuff. So we were just posting them on Facebook, on our Facebook group. And matter of fact, this year, right now we're sitting at about 4,800 followers, I think. But this year, when we released our location for the 2023 run, which will go up the Chisholm Trail, so Fort Worth Stockyards up to Abilene, Kansas, over to Dodge City, and kind of back around, within the first 72 hours, had over 14,000 views on that location. So, like I said, it literally caught fire.
And I recall you speaking about how you were, going through this challenge and your Venmo was just constantly going off. Did you use a variety of different platforms to collect donations for teams?
We did. We used Facebook a little bit. Venmo we used primarily because, like I said, I'm a technological moron. That was just the one that was easiest for me to use. We used PayPal quite a bit. But the Venmo, we put, I printed stickers, probably 12 by 12 stickers that had Buffalo Run, Camp Able, that had the Venmo QR code. We put them on all the cars. And we had people right and left driving down the road. Let's just at a gas station. You could talk to them, point to the Venmo deal. We had people donating on the side of the road, literally pulling into the Grand Canyon. My phone was nonstop. I mean, it was just ringing, and $10 here, $5, $100. We had one of our big donors and, one of our sponsors on the way home. He said, here's the deal. He said, y'all are very, very close to a certain number. I can't remember what it was then, $60,000. We were at 59 or we were at 58. He said, I'll put up $1,000 if you can match another 1,000 in 30 minutes. Well, literally, I don't know, it was 45 seconds. I mean, it just, as soon as it posted on Facebook, I got $100 here, $10, 25, 100 in literally 45 seconds. We were over back up at that 1,000. And they say activity breeds activity. That one hit. Somebody else called and did it, and literally we got so many challenges. People saying, I'll donate 1,500 if you can get 1,500. It happened so many. I was getting so many text messages, and all the other teams were doing the same thing. It wasn't just us. It was all these other teams are reaching out within their spheres of influence and their circles, and doing the same thing. So it was coming in across the board. But like I said, it was just and to speak to what Robert mentioned earlier, it kind of, that first one kind of hit at the right time. It was right at the end of COVID, or at the end of a lot of the restrictions for COVID in our area anyway. And people were ready to get out of the house. They were sitting around bored. They were ready to see something, and it just hit perfectly. It couldn't have been any better.
And I know you attracted a lot of media attention, which continues to highlight all of the great work that Camp Able is doing.
Right. That was one thing that we did early on is we had an acquaintance that became a very, very good friend that has a radio show at a local radio station. So every week we go in every Wednesday at 2:00. We would, talk about the Buffalo Run, and every time we were on the radio, I would see 5 or 6 more people join that right then, and then it would catch. I'd see a couple more people join on Facebook. So it was just getting the word out there. And we've developed some relationships with our local news stations. That's one thing. They're always looking for human interest stories like this or something, and we were selfishly using it. I'll say at first, I was kind of trolling these guys, saying, "Hey, you need to see what's going on out here." Well, then it really, really took interest. So the week of the first event, I think we were on local news 3 nights in a row, and then national news the last night. And then last year, we had, it was even more. So, in fact, the launch when we when we departed Buffalo Gap for this year, last year we went to the Four Corners Monument. When we pulled out of Buffalo Gap that time, they did it live on the news. So, it's get those people involved. They're an asset. They're looking for, always looking for a story. So, that played a vital role in our local growth. As far as the the national attention, it blew my mind. My wife and I were in Denver at Red Rocks Amphitheater for a deal last April, and I walked in and I was wearing a Buffalo Run hat. Actually, got in an Uber on the way to Red Rocks, leaving downtown Denver, and we shared an Uber with some people that we'd been talking to. They're standing on the corner, and she said, "Oh, that's the deal out of Texas, right?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "Your hat. They're Buffalo Run." I said, "How'd you know about that?" She said, "Oh, we're from Decatur, which is 2 hours down the road." I thought, well, that's not bad. And she said, "Well, we didn't know about it on Facebook. We heard some people talking about it at breakfast this morning at the hotel." And I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah, they were from Seattle. They've been watching it. They told us about it. We were all sitting there looking at it at breakfast." Well, we got to Red Rocks and somebody else walked by, and a lady from Anchorage, Alaska. We were standing in line waiting to get in. She said, "We've been watching that." And it's just, we encourage everybody, share it with everybody, and so everybody that was watching was sharing it with somebody and waking them up at 2 a.m. saying, "Hey, you got to see what these idiots are doing." So, like I said, it just truly went viral. And like I said, if it supports a worthy cause and it's going for the right reasons, it's you're going to get some bad eggs in a big event like this. And it's just developing that core group to protect the organization and to protect the event. We consider ourselves ambassadors for Camp Able, and I'm fortunate enough to work with Camp Able now. But at that time, we really promoted being ambassadors for the special needs community and being ambassadors towards Camp Able. And those people are bought in. I mean, they're all in.
That's great. And Loda, I know before we went live today, we were chatting a bit about this event, and you shared the key was every aspect is fun. Can you speak more to that?
Sure.
It is. Yeah, go ahead, Lou.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, sorry, Cody, I'll just jump in and say, you guys can listen to Cody. He is like this all the time. So you can't be around him or have lunch with him or hear him explain this crazy idea he had without laughing and just enjoying it. So fun is the key. If every aspect of an event is fun, you're going to raise money because people are having fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now, when is the 2023 challenge happening? So we can all make sure that we're tuned into this and watching.
I'll tell you, that's another thing we've learned when developing a fundraiser. We traditionally did it the first weekend of June. The next year we had 25 people say, "Oh, can we do it the second week? Can we do it the third week?" No, we do it the first week. So first week of June is the weekend. We've had to learn that you can't accommodate everybody. You got to set something and stick to it. And unfortunately, some people won't be able to participate, but that's just the way it is. So the first weekend in June will depart on Thursday, the June 1st, I believe it is. And then most teams, we've kind of tried to make it a 24-hour loop. So now, mind you, this is we've got a $500 1993 Dodge van that's hot pink that started out its life as a mortuary van. And then a florist procured this fine vehicle, painted it hot pink, and abandoned it in the middle of a pasture somewhere. We got it out with a skid loader. So whether or not we can make it in 24 hours is always questionable, but we've got everything from old Air Force ambulances to a hearse. We've got an old station wagon that looks like the Griswold family vacation station wagon. I mean, it's absolute spectacle. But and like I said, it'll all be live this year. We actually have live color commentary. We've got some guys that will track everybody on a map and put that together, kind of a news desk type or a sports center type deal. So yeah, it's going to be I don't know if it'll be successful, but it's going to be entertaining. So.
And do you have a goal for what you're looking to raise in year 3?
Absolutely not. I'm terrified we'll start sliding downhill. So we didn't have it. We had a very, very mild goal the first time. Tried to check our expectations the second time. Our second time we literally doubled everything. We had 17 teams sign up the first time. We had 34 teams sign up the second run. Raised $107,000 the first go round. Raised $216,000 the second one. So I've given up. It just amazes me every time. This last one, I told Loda, I said, I don't want to know. The first one, she was giving me updates every 10 minutes. I said, we don't want to know till everybody else finds out what the total is. So, and then once it did, it absolutely floored us. So, as far as setting goals, our goal is to have a safe rally for everybody, and like I said, keep those people involved. Make sure that they understand that it's more than a goofy car run. It's more than any one person. So while we're out there, we represent the organization and the cause.
Well, it's been truly inspiring to learn about Camp Able and this initiative, and just incredible what you were able to pull off with such minimal investment of Camp Able's own dollars.
Absolutely, and that's the forefront of it. Is make sure every dime we raise possible can go towards the cause and start doing some good.
Well, I'm starting to get a few questions in here, so I'm going to pop over and make sure we can address some of these. Robert, I think this first one is for you. Can you provide thoughts on the use of events now that the need to hold virtual events has somewhat subsided? Do you believe that they still hold value in connecting donors to mission and purpose?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the quick answer is both and, not either or. I don't think there's any turning back on the issue and the value of technology. And I say that because there are now 5 generations in the workplace and 6 generations in community. Each represent opportunities to be donors, volunteers, staff people, and so on. And I'm reminded of a dear friend of mine, older than me, who still likes to get his hands really dirty in newspaper ink. He wants to read newspapers the way you used to read newspapers. Well, that's on the one end. You've got to meet his need for that. And then on the other end are young people where everything is digital and they want hybrid options, but they're also highly social. I love what Cody's saying. I mean, he's attracting people. It's fun. I mean, you've got us all excited about that work, Cody. And so there's no substitute. I think we're social animals. We want to be in company and communion with other humans. That said, I would, to the question of both and strategy, those who wish to come in virtually, figure that out, particularly if they're donors. You got to meet the donors kind of where they are. I hope that's helpful, but we're in a both and, not either or world, it seems to me.
Great, thank you. And Cody, I see you responding to one of the questions, but the other one was, has this Buffalo run attracted additional donors?
Absolutely, and not just financial donors, but in-kind donors. We're in the process of designing a new 42,000 square foot therapeutic riding center. One of the teams that ran has a gentleman that's an architect for a big firm here in town. As a result, they donated all the blueprints and the plan for that new facility. Watching the connections come in regards to this event has been literally, you can't put a price on it. We've got an engineer that's done all our engineering work because the connections involved in this. And it's all about increased visibility for the cause. It's why have people ask me all the time, about Camp Able, how's Camp Able doing, how's everything, and I don't know half of them, but it has increased visibility for the cause, and that's that was our main goal. But yeah, the in-kind donations that have come through this, we've had people ask about donating horses or donating therapy horses. Donating equipment, it's been tremendous, and that's an underused resource. I think is not everybody can give cash, but everybody's got something laying around that maybe you can use. The challenge, honestly, is once a project catches fire like this, is to be able to say we appreciate it, but we're trying to. It's very, very hard to turn down that generosity, because you can start collecting things, but if somebody donates something substantial, they want to see it put to use, so that was our biggest challenge. If it's something that you can't use, is finding a graceful way to deny that or decline that, or you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but yes, the ripple effect of this thing is absolutely tremendous, and it affects us every day.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I know we're at the hour, so I want to remind everyone that we again are going to be opening up submissions nationwide for the Eide Bailey Resourcefulness Award. So we have key dates noted here. The submissions are going to be open starting July 13th, closing August 18th, and we will again announce the winner towards the end of October. So be thinking about those creative revenue generating initiatives that I know you all have in your organizations, and put together an application. We would love to be able to get those to our judges to pick another $50,000 winner for 2023. So Robert, Cody, Loda, and thank you all for joining us today. And I hope this gives you some inspiring information to walk away with.